Welcome into the Boys Collective episode number 22 right here on 105 through the fan here on YouTube. My name is Kevin Gray. You can find me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. I'm joined as always by the Super Bowl winning scout and 1/4 of the G Bag Nation. You can find him on Twitter at Bryan Broaddus. Bryan, happy Wednesday to you. Game preview Wednesday as the Cowboys get ready to take on the Saints in the Big Easy on Thursday night.
Yeah, and it's not an easy place to play, as we all well know. Kind of a different team a little bit there. The quarterback situation kind of in flux. We'll see what happened with their situation there. But yeah, it should be an interesting test for the Cowboys going forward, because they're a desperate team, but you're a desperate team too. So, it's going to be a matter of, who can go out there and who can kind of channel, and Dak Prescott talks about it, and he's talked about the last couple of times they've lost, being pissed off. Well, let's go out there and play pissed off then. Go out there, build a lead, make the Saints have to chase you, take them out of their ability to run the football. These are all kinds of things that the Cowboys need to look at going into this football game. But, they're capable of doing that. Getting some of these players back, I think, will surely help the attitude and the demeanor of the team as they prepare for this game.
You can also subscribe to 105 Through the Fan here on YouTube. Make sure you find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 105 Through the Fan, and of course on 105throughthefan.com. The Dallas Cowboys into this game on Thursday night at 7-4. The Saints at 5-6. The last time these two teams met, New Orleans got a 12-10 win in New Orleans back in September of 2019. Dallas is 6-5 all time against the Saints in night games. So that bodes well if you're a little bit into history when it comes to the Cowboys and the Saints. But let's start with the Broaddus files here before we get into our game preview. Of course, this is our game preview show with it being on Wednesday and the Cowboys playing on Thursday. A lot of news this week, not necessarily positive for the Cowboys, but the Cowboys finally getting some positive news as the week has gone on, namely, as you have reported, Bryan Broaddus, that Amari Cooper will, in fact, be available, not only traveling with the team, but will be able to play on Thursday night against the New Orleans Saints. And his return, obviously, a big one for a Cowboys team that has not won its last two games without him. He's been out, of course, with COVID over the last couple of games. I'm not going to lie to you. I had already got my mind wrapped around the idea that he wasn't going to play. The reports as the week gone on were pretty pessimistic about, not being able to practice, the conditioning, maybe not necessarily being there. But it sounds like today things have turned around and he'll be available to go. How big is this for this Cowboys offense, knowing that number 19 will be out there on the field on Thursday night?
This tells you, though, it's so funny, KG. I was pulling into the parking garage here at the station to do this show with you, and that's when I got the text from my source that he was playing. So it became a scramble for me to have to kind of talk about it, and get it out on Twitter and stuff. I'm really happy that we're having this show to kind of talk about it a little bit too. But yeah, you're right. This didn't look good initially. This is one of those things where, Amari Cooper, the one thing you have to say about Amari Cooper is that if he could play, he'll go play. He's, and I wish there was a day where Amari Cooper would step on the football field where his foot, his ankle, his hamstring, his shoulder, his lungs, everything felt good. I wish there was a time when everything felt good on Amari Cooper, because Amari Cooper can be a rare football player. And even when Amari Cooper is banged up, nicked up, he goes out there and he gives you so much. And the way teams have kind of figured out how to handle the Dallas Cowboys is play press coverage. Get up on them, beat them up a little bit, make them win off the line of scrimmage. What's the one thing Amari Cooper does very well? He beats press coverage. He's a good route runner. That's some of the stuff that I think Dak Prescott has missed the last couple of games of not having an Amari Cooper out there. And, I think with him and Gallup, and Lamb, now it's a different set of circumstances for the Saints. It's not just, oh, by the way, you got to go take Lamb and knock him out of the game. And, we can handle Gallup one-on-one. And by the way, Noah Brown will be no factor in this game because his confidence is shot because of some of the drops he's had. So the Saints mindset now went from having to prepare for, one guy, really one and a half guys, to now like, oh, geez, all three of their guys are going to be on that field. And that can only bode well for Dak Prescott going forward in this game. The offensive line, no steal this week. I don't think that's a big, huge problem. I think, hey, let Collins play those 75 snaps this week. Let Smith play those 75 snaps. Maybe you get a better game at left guard from Connor McGovern. This team needs all hands on deck, as we flip the calendar to December 1. And again, Amari Cooper out there, he just means so much for this offense, just from the fact that he can escape, he can finish, and that's what they need right now. They need those players. They've missed those types of plays in these losses that they've had.
I think one thing for me that concerns me most, obviously, it's great to have Amari Cooper back. And throughout this pandemic, we have seen how COVID affects people differently. I'm interested to see what his conditioning and what he's going to be looking like. As you mentioned, the tremendous route runner that he is and the toughness that he shows, week in and week out when he gets out on the field, how much of an effect and how quickly he can affect this offense, I think is going to be interesting to watch, knowing how he's able to make his teammates better in terms of the CeeDee Lambs, the Michael Gallups of the world, knowing that when he's on the field, he's commanding the kind of attention that he is. So I'm sure number 88 is also happy to see Amari Cooper back on the field when they get ready to take on the Saints on Thursday night.
It's just a different type of an offense when those guys are together. There's things that, there's combinations of routes that they can run, whether you take Lamb inside, run him vertically, and then clear stuff, and then run Cooper underneath. You got the slant game where you can do it with Cooper on the outside. You can go vertical. And the one thing that's great about having Michael Gallup in the game is we've seen it last week against the Raiders was the vertical passing game. Mm-hmm. When you're hitting with the slants and the ends and the stuff, then you take that number 13 and you run it vertically, and then all of a sudden the safeties are biting on all that underneath stuff. And now the ball is one-on-one on the outside. Boom, there's your big play. We saw that. That's how the Cowboys were able to get back into the game against the Raiders. The Raiders took advantage of you because of the penalties throwing the deep ball. You didn't come around to throwing the deep ball until the second half, almost the fourth quarter of that game. And maybe if you'd have done it a little sooner, the outcome of that game might have been a little bit different. But now that you have all three receivers available, it just makes this offense really so much more dynamic for the Saints to have to deal with.
It does look unfortunately like Cedric Wilson may not play in this game. He's been dealing with an ankle injury, has not been able to participate in practice, so they will miss him as far as the depth is concerned. But the return of Amari Cooper is surely going to help there. Also, speaking of returns, DeMarcus Lawrence is back for the Dallas Cowboys, being on this defensive line to really help hopefully create some pass rush and also deal with a running game that, yes, while Alvin Kamara has been limited in practice dealing with a knee injury, Mark Ingram is said to be good to go for the New Orleans Saints. And more importantly, also, it is appearing that Taysom Hill is going to be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, and what he can do in terms of the run game and the all-everything gadget guy that he is. How important is DeMarcus Lawrence's now return to this defensive line going to help, especially against a team in the Saints that does have tremendous capabilities in terms of running the football the way that they creatively can do it with those three guys that I mentioned?
Yeah, KG, I went back and watched Taysom Hill play quarterback against the Philadelphia Eagles last year. It was the one start. He was 3-1. He beat Atlanta twice, in his three wins. But yeah, the loss he had it was funny because it was Jalen Hurts for the 3-7-1 Philadelphia Eagles first start at the game in Philadelphia. And the thing I noticed about with Taysom Hill is you're going to, that was a game where they didn't run him a whole heck of a lot. And, it'll be interesting with the foot issues that he's had, how much Sean Payton really, really wants to run him in this game. When you have guys that you have finishers like, a Micah Parsons who gets on a quarterback so quick and is such a violent tackler, that's the stuff. If I'm going after Taysom Hill, I'm trying to hit him. I'm trying to make him, struggle in this game, because what happened is he turned the ball over a couple of different times in that Philadelphia game I watched. There was a tip pass off Kamara There was another pass that was just, it was a poor route. So he had a couple of interceptions. The one thing that the Saints, I don't think they can afford to let the Cowboys run away in this game and all of a sudden it's like it was Atlanta, like it's a 21-3 game. I just don't think the Saints are equipped to play that type of game where they have to rally back with Taysom Hill playing quarterback. This team doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of big plays. They don't have a lot of explosive plays, and a lot of it has to do with what Trevor Siemian at quarterback. They don't have the receiving core that they've once had. I mean, they've got good players, but they just don't have the explosiveness on the outside that they once had. Now, Harris is a nice little player for them. They've had, Kenny Stills, guys like that. But, with Smith, Callaway, I mean, they've just kind of, it's been a little bit of a struggle for them. And, that's the thing. But you're right about with Taysom Hill, the potential to just load up and say, okay, we're going to run the football. We'll see what happens with Alvin Kamara. There's been some questions about him being available. Mark Ingram will probably get the lion's share of the work. But, Sean is going to come up with a creative game plan. Sean Payton, and I know Sean Payton, he's a dear friend. He lives for this game. He lives for the fact to beat the Cowboys. Because one day Sean Payton, and I do believe this in my heart, wants to come in here like Bill Parcells came in later in his career and have 4 or 5 years. And Parcells didn't have 4 or 5 years, but, he had enough time where all of a sudden it was like, you get to coach the Dallas Cowboys, and that's a big thing. Sean really, really does. He loved his time in Dallas, but he loves to beat Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones. And the fact that he could maybe do it on national TV, this is going to be a big, big, big game for him.
Speaking of Jerry Jones, as we continue into our game preview, he said on 105 through the Fan this week with Sean and RJ that he expects Ezekiel Elliott to have a full load. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, Bryan. That took me a little bit aback because this is a young man who has been dealing with a bone bruise for the last several weeks. The production has declined significantly over these last several weeks. Ezekiel Elliott has said to be feeling better himself about the way that his knee is responding. Is that a formula for the Cowboys given the struggles that he has had, or should the Cowboys look to feature Tony Pollard a little bit more in terms of the run game, even with the deficiencies as a pass blocker and a guy who picks up? Is there a situation where Tony Pollard maybe should get a little bit more of the lion's share of the carries given what Zeke's dealing with right now?
I do think so. And, I had somebody tell me about Zeke, and, the questions all week came up, well, should they rest him? Should they rest him? Should they rest him? And I asked somebody in the organization, I'm like, what about Zeke? Do you try and steal a game for him here now? And the guy said, listen, he had 129 yards or something after he got hurt in the Carolina game the next week. Has it been a struggle? Yeah, but a lot of the struggle has been what's going on up front. They just haven't blocked well enough, and we've seen, Pollard's had some runs, but it's not like Pollard's wearing them out either. So they need to get this offensive line situation squared up quick. But Ezekiel Elliott, I had this guy telling me, he's like, listen, you want to be the guy that goes over there and tells him he's not playing this week? I don't want to be that guy. That's what this, and that's true. You almost have to have him, especially in these games, if it turns into it's a shootout, because you can't put Pollard on the field in blitz pickup. If I see Pollard, if I'm a defensive coordinator and I see Pollard on the field, and it's a pass situation, I'm blitzing because he is not sturdy enough. The one thing, you remember the Atlanta game, first touchdown of the game, Ezekiel Elliott right back next to Dak, comes across the pocket, picks up Jones on the blitz, stones him. Prescott throws the ball to the outside. It's a touchdown. That's that you don't get that from Pollard. And we all love Tony Pollard. But that's why Elliott has to play, because A, you can hand him the ball, B, you can throw him the ball, but C, he will save your ass when there's a blitz pickup. That's why you have him on the field. So it's hard if you're saying, oh, well, let's take him out. Well, you better have an idea how you're going to replace his ability to be that extra blocker when people bring pressure.
It's interesting you say that because in the red zone is where Zeke is especially effective, especially down inside the goal line. The New Orleans Saints defense has allowed a touchdown only 47.1% of its opponent's red zone drives in 2021. That's second best in the NFL. Meanwhile, the Cowboys offense is scoring a touchdown on 61.5% of its red zone trips in 2021. That's good for 13th in the National Football League. So the Cowboys' ability to capitalize on the red zone, especially when they get deep into the red zone, Ezekiel Elliott is a big part of that with his ability to be able to get it in across the goal line. So let's look at this Cowboys offense and how they will attack this defense for the New Orleans Saints. Obviously, a really good defense that features some really good players, Cam Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore. This defense, especially for the Saints in their rushing game, one of the best, if not the best, rushing defenses all of the National Football League. How does Kellen Moore and this offense go about attacking the New Orleans Saints defense on Thursday night?
Yeah, I think to me, this is, you're going to get, it's very similar to what we saw with how and it's literally like a 4-3 attack, but you have tackles that play down, and you have line or defensive ends that will put their hands down. Like Cameron Jordan, you watch him play. Cameron Jordan will stand up, rush. Cameron Jordan will put his hands down and rush. So him, Davenport, sometimes you see two down linemen. You see two guys standing up. I think like Demario Davis, the linebacker, and those guys, I mean, that line does a great job of kind of holding the front and holding the blockers. But you guys like with Davis and Kwan Alexander and those guys, I mean, they're flying downhill making tackles. I mean, this is a team that really, really, really gets after you when it comes to getting to the football. Now, they've given up their share of some plays in the back end, but I mean, it's a tough defense to crack because what happens is you don't always block Cam Jordan. He finds a way to get off the ball. You don't always block Marcus Davenport. You don't block Davis all that much. I mean, it's going to be, and then you got a guy like Malcolm Jenkins, who we all know very well from Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm Jenkins is always going to be around the line of scrimmage, and he's always going to be causing problems doing something. He's going to be up there being the extra guy. You dealt with that. You really dealt that with the Denver Broncos and how they were walking their safeties up and stuff like that. So, you got to be able to account for these guys up front. Are the Cowboys equipped to do that? Yeah, I think the offensive line, it's finally going to be the offensive line that we thought was going to start the year. Well, I take that back. Connor Williams is not, so right. I should just throw that. Yeah, that's right. Connor Williams is there. But yeah, so okay, but see,
it's close enough at this point. It's close enough.
Yeah, it's more of a power group, KG. It's more power up front. It's but you can't have Tyron Smith like not blocking out, or you can't. And a lot of it, I think, was the short week, with what they were dealing with. Maybe the practices not being fully engaged, maybe there's some things there that weren't like, the T's crossed and the I's dotted that, okay, we're going to run this play. And, oh, by the way, Tyron Smith is just going to blow the block and let guys run through. I mean, that's what I'm saying about the Saints defense. You can't let guys go unblocked in this football game. You just can't have that.
Dennis Allen's group, one of the best in terms of stopping the run. They're going to have their hands full with these receivers. Now the Cowboys will have their three top receivers available in this game. Let's switch to the defensive side of the ball for the Cowboys and how they attack the Saints offense. Now, Dan Quinn is going to be the one running things and running the show on Thursday night. Of course, Mike McCarthy is out with COVID-19. Dan Quinn not only will be handling things in terms of the responsibilities as the head coach, but still making and in tandem with Joe Witt, the defensive calls going into this game. How does Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator, go about attacking this offense for the Saints, given the versatility that they have? But more so for me, they don't really have, to me, a receiver that really threatens you in terms of the passing game, especially with no Michael Thomas the way that he's been out, this season.
Michael Thomas is a huge loss. I mean, I was watching that Philadelphia game from last year, and he made play after play after play. It's like when Taysom Hill got in the lineup, it was like, well, let's find Michael Thomas, And so, yeah, it's a huge break for the Cowboys. But yeah, that you've got to be ready for Callaway, Smith. These guys are capable, but they're more like the line of what you're talking about with, maybe they're more like in the line of what you have with Gallup, that kind of, that type of receiver. Harris, number 11, can really, really, really run. So, I mean, they've got guys that are capable of making plays. I just think, KG, the most important thing, the way to interact or to stop this Saints offense is to make them have to chase you tonight or on Thursday. They have to make you chase them. Keep converting third downs, keep scoring points, make them have to make Taysom Hill have to score 30 points in this game. Make him have, if it's a close, tight game where all of a sudden the Saints are driving the ball, and you're not stopping them, and it's 7-7, it's 10-7, it's 10-10, it's 17-10, it's 17 all. That game helps the Saints. That completely helps the Saints because the Saints can continue to do what they want to do with running the football. But if you make Taysom Hill have to beat you throwing the ball, Dallas has the better quarterback here. Mm-hmm. Dallas has the better wide receivers. Dallas has, I kind of feel like that defensively, Saints might be better than you. Saints might be better than you up front, but you've got to find a way to get after Taysom Hill, and you've got to find a way not to let them be comfortable and balanced with their offense.
This is a Saints offense that has scored 163 touchdowns in the Superdome since the start of 2016, the most by any NFL team in its home venue, closely followed by the Cowboys, who have scored 152 touchdowns at home.
A lot of that Drew Brees. A lot of that's Drew Brees. Yeah.
No Drew Brees running around for the Saints this time around. Interesting note on this game, too. We talked about how ridiculous the officiating was in the game against with the Cowboys and the Raiders. Interesting note here, the Cowboys officiating crew that will be during this game will be Brad Rogers and his crew. Now, interesting note, he called more penalties against the Cowboys in 2020 than any other team in the league last year. They had twice as many penalties and penalty yards than their opponents last year when Brad Rogers was officiating. So, look, you say, Kevin, we really shouldn't have to talk about the officials. Well, based on what happened last week with the Raiders and the Cowboys, I'm sure everyone's going to be looking at who's officiating the Cowboys game this week. So it's Brad Rogers' crew officiating the game on Thursday night. So we'll see how the game is called.
Well, I think they've had Brad Rogers already this year to the game. Brad Rogers might have officiated their Minnesota game. I might be wrong about that. I could probably quickly look this up. But I think Brad Rogers his crew was the crew that had the Cowboys Minnesota game. If I'm not mistaken, it was either that or the Giants game. It was one of the two games that the Cowboys had this year. So,
well, maybe that means the Cowboys win if that's the case. And Brad Rogers is going to be officiating because we know what happened when the Cowboys visited the Minnesota Vikings. But regardless of the situation, I think it brings up an interesting point. The Cowboys are the most penalized team in the National Football League this year.
That's a big problem. That's a huge problem.
Exactly.
It's a huge problem. Yeah.
And the question I wanted to pose is this the most undisciplined team in the National Football League? And if so, how can they fix this in the last 6 games to try and cut down on some of the penalties, knowing that this is a game that you have to have on the road against the Saints on Thursday night?
Yeah, I mean, KG, there's a lot of things. Okay, Scott Novak was the official. I'm looking at this now. Scott Novak was the official in that game against Minnesota. Minnesota actually got worked on that. Was Brad Rogers your official? I'm sorry, I'm obsessed with this now because of these officials. But Bill Vinovich was the Denver game. Man, I swear to gosh, it might have been Carolina. Okay. Anyway, to your point. There's a lot. Let's be honest. The penalties and the fact that this kicker, since he's been with you, 46% of the time he is going to miss in games a field goal or an extra point. I mean, think about that. In games that he's played, you're talking about being super penalized, but you're also like in a situation where you're like, you're sitting there and you can't even rely on your kicker to make a field goal or an extra point when you need to. So, there's things, and then, then you put them in situations too, where all of a sudden, you're asking a player who you saw couldn't block on a smoke screen the other day, in the Kansas City game, but you're asking him to block in space again, Schultz, on a 2-point play.
2-point play, right.
So I don't know. I mean, I just want to, you could talk about the officiating and all that stuff, but there are more issues here. I mean, there are really more issues to this football team. I mean, trying to kind of figure everything out and, with really what's going on, it's tough. You want to say, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about that? And so you're kind of, it's really, really a kind of a tough situation, to be honest with you, because you want to point and say, well, they need to fix the penalties. Well, okay, how about fixing the missed extra points and field goals? How about fixing, like, putting guys in position to block, that can block? There's just a lot of things with this football team. When they were 6-1, all these things were going pretty well for you.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that were masking a lot of the things that were going wrong.
Exactly. So, yeah, but hopefully they get things squared away, because this conference is for the taking.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously,
I agree.
There's not anybody running away with this. So you got to kind of figure it out. You got to figure out, like, okay, what do we have to do? What do we have to do in order to kind of not get penalized, not miss field goals?
Sure.
Put the guys in good situations. Once you kind of figure that out, this team could be unbeatable. It really, really can, especially if it starts getting back all these guys. All right, Brad Rogers, finally found it. I'm talking and finding it. Brad Rogers refereed your Philadelphia game this year, is what he did.
Okay.
The game that the Cowboys smashed the Eagles on Monday Night Football. Mm-hmm. Brad Rogers was your official that day. So, it was a good win for the Cowboys.
Trayvon Diggs had a pick six that night.
Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe they'll get another.
It'd be nice to have one of those. Yeah. I haven't seen one of those in a while.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things, KG. Just not the officiating. There's a lot of things that need to be taken care of, but hopefully they will find that balance and get back to being the team that they were.
So as we quickly move into our X factors before we end our show here, a number that I think. Oh yeah,
real quick. I am. X factor stuff. Brad Rogers called 13 penalties against the Eagles for 86 yards. You had 4 penalties for 37 yards. There you go.
Okay. So that's good.
So maybe if Brad Rogers calls 4 for 37 and calls the Saints for 13 for 86, this might be, Cowboy fans might actually be happy in this game.
It might be okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting number coming in as we go to our X factors real quick. 6.5. Micah Parsons in the month of November had 6.5 sacks in 4 November games, tied for the second most sacks in a single month in Cowboys history. Micah Parsons firmly, obviously, solidifying his defensive rookie of the year status, now being in consideration potentially for defensive player of the year with his 9 sacks. That's how good Micah Parsons has been. What's an X factor or two offensively or defensively that the Cowboys need to execute on Thursday night for them to walk out of New Orleans with the win against the Saints?
I think the noise factor is going to be big, and I think it's going to be about like Kansas City level. And you've got to find a way to make this thing work. You've got to be able to handle the noise. You've got to be able to handle the silent counts. You've got to be able to block the edges. All those things that we were kind of talking about in Kansas City. You can't have false start penalties. You can't be Tyler Broaddus in 2 games in a row have false starts at center. I don't know how that happens, but it does with this guy. So you've got to find a way to make sure you take care of those things. You can't be 1st and 15, 2nd and 15 all day against the Saints. You just can't do that. So to me, the X factor is offensive line, no pre-snap penalties, no penalties in general. I think, trying to eliminate, it's going to be tough to eliminate the holding calls and stuff. But, man, just don't let big plays get left on the field because of hands outside. Don't be sloppy with your technique, offensive line. Find a way to be hands inside. Saints will probably be wearing their white jerseys, white gloves. Hold those hands inside. Don't get them on the outside of the body. Don't give the Saints any cheap penalties, and especially with this offensive line.
One offensive and one defensive X factor for me defensively, DeMarcus Lawrence and his return. This is a Saints team that can creatively run the football. Obviously, we'll see if Alvin Kamara can go with his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, running between the tackles. Mark Ingram looks like he's good to go. How quickly DeMarcus Lawrence can have an effect, not only in terms of the run game, but getting after the passer is going to tell us a lot about how DeMarcus Lawrence is going to be looking. He's been ready to get back. And for Cowboys fans, being able to see him back on the field is going to help, not just in getting a pass rush, but we know how tremendous he is in the run game. That's going to be tested in this game against the Saints. And then offensively, it goes back to Amari Cooper. How quickly can he have the kind of effect on this offense that we've seen missing over the last couple of weeks, and his ability to create opportunities for his teammates to be able to make plays down the field? Amari Cooper, to me, there's a reason why the Cowboys got rid of a first-round pick to be able to bring him in, and you saw how this offense has changed since he has come here. He needs to be that guy to be able to have that kind of effect for Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott has recorded 7 games with a passer rating of at least 100 in 2021, tied with Josh Allen and Kirk Cousins for the most in the NFL. I'm sure number 4 is excited to see Amari Cooper back on the field on Thursday night. It should be a fun one in New Orleans. It's always a good time down in the Big Easy. Good food, good time, and a real interesting sports calendar as we record today. Yeah, go ahead.
Murder birds, Cowboys, Saints, murder birds, right? I got you.
That's right. That's right. The Mavericks play the Saints, they play the Pelicans on Wednesday night, which we're recording today. Cowboys play the Saints on Thursday, and then the Pelicans come back to Dallas to play the Mavericks on Friday. So a little bit of DFW New Orleans thing going on over the next few days, but nonetheless should be a lot of fun. Hopefully the Cowboys can get back on track. Losers of 3 of their last 4. Meanwhile, a Saints team who is desperate for a win themselves, trying to stay in it in the wild card picture. Both teams should be ready to go on Thursday night. Bryan, appreciate the time as always. We know you're out there hard working, doing everything you can to cover this team. We really appreciate it. And obviously the folks here on the Boys Collective really appreciate it as well. You can find Bryan on Twitter at Bryan Broaddus, and of course 1/4 of the G-Bag Nation. They will be all over it today and on Thursdays to get you ready for the Cowboys and Saints. You can hear that on 105 through the Fan with the voice of America's team, Brad Sham, Babe Laufenberg, and Christy Scales, and of course right here on 105 through the Fan. For my Super Bowl, for the Super Bowl winning scout, Bryan Broaddus, my name is Kevin Gray. You can find me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. It's been the Boys Collective episode number 22. Have a great day. Bryan, appreciate the time. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, KG.